This is lesson 6-2, solving percents mentally. Now I'm going to do a few things a little different than what the book does because I'm going to do it the way you would do it in real life. Like I'm going to show you ways you could find percents mentally in real life and some situations that you would use this in. So it might be a little different from what the book is asking from you, but just know that what I'm teaching you today is something you're going to use in real life. So my first question is, when would you ever have to figure out percents mentally? A lot of times, there's two times where people figure percent mentally, and that's when they shop, and the second is when they are figuring out tax or tips. Some jobs also require you to use percents, and sometimes people can get so good that they can do things mentally, but in real life, everybody will most likely use it for these two times. But then, like I said, there's some jobs that will require you to use percents also, and you'll get so good at them that you can do them in your head. So, how to do this mentally? There's a few simple rules to do this mentally. And the first simple rule is how to change or how to make things 50%. Okay, so to find 50% of a number, all you do is you take your number and you divide it by 2. The second one, which is used probably the most, is how to find 10% of a number. Finding 10% of a number opens many doors. You can find 30%, 40%, 15%, 10%, 5%. You can find a lot of things from 10%. And to do that, you take your decimal and you move it left once in your number. And then the third one is finding 1%. This one's not used so much. I think the ones we stick with most are 50 and 10. But to find 1% of a number, you move your decimal to the left twice. So let's just do an example. If I say, okay, I have 600. If I want to find 6% or 50% of this, I would divide it by 2. So 50% would be 300. Okay. If I want to find 10%, I'm going to go back to this 600. I know there's a decimal here, and my rule is if I'm going to move it to the left once, so 10% would be 60. And then if I'm going to find 1%, I'm going to go back to my 600, and I'm going to start at my decimal again, and I'm going to move it 2 spaces. So 1% would be 6. And then you can use these to find anything else that you want to find, and I'll show you how to do that. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to work with 2,000. We're just going to do some examples here. So 2,000, 50% of 2,000, I'm cut it in half, I'm going to be 1,000. If I want to find 10% of 2,000, like if this is my decimal, I'll move it 1 space. So 10% would be 200. 1%, I'm going to start there again. 2 spaces, 1, 2. 1% would be 20. Okay, let's do this one together. 350, 50% of that would be 175. 10%, start here. 1 space, so it should be 35. And 1% would be 2 spaces, 3.5. The goal is to get you to be able to do this in your head. That's the goal, because when you're out and about and you're shopping or you're trying to find a tax or a tip, it's actually kind of a chore to get out your calculator and do it. If you could mentally do it, it makes it all easy and simpler for you. It's a quicker way. Okay, so let's look at 460, and let's find the regular 3 that we started with and see that I threw in a 5%, and we'll talk about how to find that 5%. So half of 460 would be 230. 10%, 1 space, would be 46. And 1% would be 2 spaces, so 4.6. Now, how to find 5%? You can find 5% from what we just found. There's no rule for 5%, but you can use 10% to find what 5% would be. So to find 5%, you have to find 10% first. So I'm going to go back to here, and I'm going to say, okay, if 10% is 46, half of 10% would be 5%. So if half of 10, oops, let me write it like this. If I divide 10% by 2, it gives me 5%. So to find 5% here, I'm going to divide by 2, and I get 23. So 5% would be 10% just divided by 2. So that would give me 23. And then if I go to the next one below here, we'll add in 5% here too. Okay. So first of all, let's go find our 50. 50 would be 24 would be 12. 10% would be 2.4. 1% would be 0.24. I'm just following my rules. My rule, remember I had rules for these two. And now to find these two, I'm going to use what I found above. So 20% can be fairly simple because you can use your 10% again to find what 20% is. So that what I do is I think about, okay, if I have two 10%, that gives me 20%. So if I multiply, I'm going to take this also by 2. So I know 20% is 4.8. So doubling 10% is going to give you 20%. And then, okay, so we know this is 4.8. And let's say we find 5%. Well, 5% would be 10% cut in half. So that would be 1.2. Up here, this would be this cut in half. Would be 5%. All right, so let's do some practice here. I'm just going to give you one. And let's use, let's do 800. Okay. I want you to find 50. I want you to find 10. I want you to find 20. And I want you to find 5. Notice I skipped the 1% because we probably don't need that one. So find all of these. All right, so let's go and see. 50% would be 400. 10% would be 80. Now 20% would be doubling my 10, because 10% plus 10% is 20%, so then I'm going to double this. So this would be 160. Now 5%, I can go back to my 10 also and say, okay, well, if I know 10% is 80, half of 10% would be 5%. So then I'm going to divide that 80 by 2, so that would be 40. Now let's say I want to find 30%. There's a lot of ways that I could find 30% here. I could add my 20% and my 10%, because 10% plus 20% is 30, so that means I'm just going to add these two. So that would be 240. Let's say I want to find 25%. 20% plus 5% would be 25%, so that means I'm just going to add these two then, which would be 100 and 200 actually. So basically, if you find 10%, you can find anything else. You can also find 50. So let's say I wanted you to find 60% here. So there's a lot of ways you could find 60%. You could take 10% times it by 6. You could take your 50 and your 10 and you could add them together. That would be 480. You could take 20% multiplying by 3. There's so many ways you could find these percents out by just basing off of 10% and 50%. All right, why didn't you find this one by yourself? Use mental math or however your rules to find each percent of 1,800. So why don't you go ahead and try a few of these. Okay, so 50% would be 900. 10% would be 180 using my rules that I gave you at the beginning. 1% also would be 18 using my rules from the beginning. I move my decimal 2 spaces to the left. Now 5%, I'm going to use 10 to help with my 5. If I know 10% is 180, I'm going to cut that in half to find 5%. That would be 90. Let's see. I'm going to use, I'm going to find 20% also. Okay, and to do that, I'm going to also use my 10. So it'll be 180 plus 180 would be 360. Now I can use these two things. Hold on. To find 25%, I can use these two things together. So that would be 450. Because I'm going to add these two things together. And then 75, holy smokes, 75, you could do a 50, a 20, and a 5. You could do, let's see, 3 25s. That's up to you. You could do 100 minus 25 would be 75%. So there's so many different ways that you could do it. So let's do 100%, which would be this. minus a 25%. So 100 minus 25, or I'm sorry, 1800 minus that 25% would be 450, would be 1350. So there's a lot of ways that you can figure percents out by just basing things off of 10 and 50. Um, Go ahead and try to do some of these yourself using mental math. The first thing I would do is I'd probably break things down to 10% or 50%. There's a lot of different ways you could do it. So go ahead and pause and try to figure some of these out yourself. Okay, so I'm going to find what I did for this one. Right off the top of my head, I found 10, which is 4. And then I found 5%, which is just dividing by 2, which would be 2, and then adding them together, because all this together, this would be 15%, so 6. The cool thing about 25 is you could also divide by 4. You could easily find 25% doing that. But I'm going to break it down. I'm going to do 10. I know 10 is 600. So I know 20 would be doubling this. So that would be 1200. Now I need another 5% because I'm looking for 25. So 5% would be 300. Now if I put these two things together, that's going to give me 25%. So it would be 1500. Over here, let's see, I'm probably, since it's 60, I'm probably going to find a 50, and I'm probably going to find a 10, and I'm going to add them together. But there's a lot of things you could do. You could do take 10 and times it by 6 also. So let's see, 50 would be 60, 10 would be 12, and this would be 72. 30, I'm going to find probably 10 and times it by 3, so 10% would be 24, and then I'm going to find, let's see, 24, 24, which should be 12, 2, 4, 6, 7, 72. So there's a lot of ways you can do some of these. The last thing I'm going to show you is estimating. So when you estimate today, I just want to make sure that you estimate to something super simple. Like make it as simple as possible because that's the goal. The goal is to make it so you can find them doing what we did before. So like for example, if your question was find 11% of 250, seriously round this to 10 and make it find 10% of 250. Your answer would be 25. You could do it right in your head. Even if this was like a weird number, maybe if this was 253, round this too. Make it super simple so you can round it for yourself. So like example here, I would estimate this at 20% of 540. And you could easily do this by saying, okay, well, I know 10% is 54, timesing by 2 would be 108. Figure that out without using my calculator, without setting a proportional equation. Very simple. So if you have any questions, let me know. Jot down anything that you want me to go over again, and I will see you next class period. Thanks for watching.